Hello, I'm Brian Hubbard,
And I'm Lynne McTaggart.
and we are What Doctors Don't Tell You. What Doctors Don't Tell You is a magazine. We've been publishing since 1989. It's also an award-winning website, WDDTY.com. So, yeah, we've got plenty to say about health and medicine, and so we're going to start this week with some news. And I think still very much in our minds right now is that terrible shooting in Florida. And of course, it's still seared in the memory as the Sandy Hook, Columbine, and all the other atrocities. And researchers, when they've looked at this, have found that in around about 85–90% of cases, the perpetrator was on or was coming off of an SSRI antidepressant. And some people are beginning to suspect these drugs may be having a part to play. But the news this week is even more interesting because they're now discovering that the common everyday over-the-counter painkillers like ibuprofen, aspirin, paracetamol are also distorting our sense of reality and making us less empathetic to the pain of others. Now, this first came to light quite recently in a study from the University of East Finland, who looked at the history of round about 900 murder, people convicted of murder, and compared them to 9,000 people who hadn't committed any crime, and really expecting to see a strong link with SSRIs. But what astonished them was an even stronger link with these over-the-counter painkillers. An SSRI was maybe increasing the chance of them perpetrating a terrible crime by 30%. But taking an over-the-counter painkiller was more than doubling that risk. And just to emphasize, these are painkillers we buy every day in the stores. They are the aspirins and the paracetamols of this world. You don't need a prescription. And no one has ever suspected before that they're not just deadening pain, they could be deadening our feelings towards others. So the big question is, has that played any part in these terrible crimes? Well, the truth of the matter is, the University of California have just picked up on this. They say, we don't really know. It's too early to say, but it's extremely alarming that there seems to be some connection going on here, and one that no one's ever suspected before. And when you think that we're taking these painkillers in by the shed loads, millions and millions and millions every day for the least ache or pain, that it could be distorting our sense of reality.
I mean, it's really shocking that that the regulatory agencies aren't looking into this further, because if you look at America and the UK and many other parts of the world, we are having an absolute epidemic of painkillers of every variety. I mean, in America, there's a huge opioid epidemic. And as Brian says, there have been some links between the shooters in many of these mass killings and SSRIs, the painkillers, the antidepressants like Prozac. They definitely demonstrate in some of their literature, it's mentioned from the drug companies themselves, that they increase violence, increase suicidal ideation. That means increase somebody's propensity to commit suicide. I was always interested in one of the most famous suicides of all, Sylvia Plath, and discovered that she was on another kind of antidepressant in the 2 times she tried to kill herself. The second time she was successful. That's never brought up. They talk about how troubled she is, how this and that and the other, and they never make the link with drugs. But with all of the major shooters, the latest one, the one in Las Vegas, the guy was on some sort of antidepressant. The people in Columbine, the students, they were on some sort of antidepressant, et cetera, et cetera. And it was over and over and over again a link between drugs. But as you say, what's really frightening is we're talking about the everyday painkillers that people take for headaches. And if this is the case, if they are altering your brain, and many women take them once a month, they'll take them for 6 days, once every month. And, many people who have periodic and regular headaches will take them all the time. People with arthritis are living on those kinds of painkillers, and on and on and on. You can see what this is doing. It could increase our propensity to violence of all kinds, not just walking into a school and shooting, but also domestic violence of every kind. And of course, that it's out of control in the States. So this is another indication that essentially there's no such thing as a perfectly safe drug.
And it's interesting what you say about the autism and ADHD link, because these same researchers from the University of California also looked at the painkillers and what they were doing to the baby in the womb or who was being breastfed. And again, they found a correlation between mothers who are regularly taking painkillers, and it's a common drug to take when you're pregnant, and a link between those taking the drug and the cases of autism and ADHD. And again, they found a correlation. As I say, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and that's especially true when it comes to taking a drug, even a supposedly benign, everyday over-the-counter drug like the common painkiller.
Well, and I'm horrified at the kinds of drugs that are given pregnant women. We should have learned our lesson with thalidomide, but women are being prescribed antidepressants. They're being given things like flu vaccines, in fact, encouraged to get them, and other vaccines because they believe that will also inoculate their child, and things like painkillers. And the bottom line is anything you take goes straight to the baby, the growing baby. And there's no such thing as a safe drug, so that's doubly true for unborn children.